to take 7 years. Join West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and on YouTube and Facebook for a full day's coverage. Benin decides, WADR covers. This is the live coverage of the 2026 presidential election in Benin. Well, it's midday here in Dakar and at 1 p.m. in Cotonou. Good afternoon, and thank you for staying tuned to our live coverage of the 2026 presidential election in Benin. It's been more than 5 hours since voting commenced, and so far all has been calm from reports we have been receiving. Well, don't forget, we are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. We are also on Eutelsat 16A on the frequency of 12687 megahertz. I am Imo Edet, and I won't be doing this alone this afternoon, as I do have Augustine Kohli co-anchoring. Augustine.
Yes, good afternoon, Imo. Indeed, we thank you for joining us on this live coverage of the presidential election in Benin, the second edition in English. And in the coming minutes, we will bring you all the latest happenings. We do have an in-house analyst with us. Of course, feature reports coming up and minute-by-minute update on the elections in that West African state.
Indeed, and before we continue, let me quickly introduce our studio guest. Amado Kamara Gay is a political analyst based here in Dakar. Amado, thank you so much for joining us, and it's good to see you.
Thank you, Edith, and thank you, your colleague. So I think that we will have a good discussion.
Indeed.
Welcome, sir. And before we take on Amadou, here is a quick update from Benin. All concentrations are now focused on Benin. Opposition candidate Paul Hunkwe cast his vote this afternoon at the EPP Agdanme polling station in Luboko, Bopa commune. While speaking with newsmen, he is quoted as saying, "I came here to fulfill my civic duty. I believe it is everyone's responsibility to go out and vote. We want to turn a page in our history, choose a new president, and I believe this is crucial to our democracy, our freedom, and above all for the development of our nation," he said after casting his vote.
Indeed, quite interesting. And also to remind our listeners that polls opened this morning at 7 a.m., which is our 6 a.m. here, and will close at 4 p.m., being our 3 p.m., which means in the next 2-3 hours, polling should be closing. And we understand that more than 7.9 million people are registered to vote in today's election, including 62,000 in the diaspora. Well, talking about diaspora, as we continue in this conversation, we'll be reaching out to hear from people across embassies to find out how the voting is going in that end. Well, let's also tell you that this 2026 vote is the 8th election in the democratic era of the Republic of Benin.
And indeed, so today all eyes are on this country as the citizens head to the polls to elect their next president in a vote that has been seen as a key moment for the country's democracy, which survived an attempted coup on December 7, 2025, when a group of men calling itself the Military Committee for Refundation attempted to overthrow the now outgoing President Patrice Talon. You will also agree that while Benin has historically been among the most stable democracies in Africa, opposition leaders and human rights organizations have accused Talon of using the justice system as a tool to silence his political opponents after taking office in 2016 and changing electoral rules.
Well, talking about Talon now, in a symbolic end to a decade in power, outgoing president cast his ballot this morning at the Charles Goulard Primary School in Zongo, Cotonou, just over 2 hours after polling stations opened across Benin for the 2026 presidential election. Well, despite the many controversies that have marked his presidency, including accusations of shrinking democratic space, opposition, exclusion, and recent political tensions, following a failed coup attempt, which Augustine mentioned. President Talon struck a remarkably optimistic and reflective tone moments after voting. Let's take a listen.
Nous avons tous assisté dans tout le pays entier.
Across the entire country, we have all witnessed an electoral process aimed this time at replacing the entire political leadership. And what I have observed from November and December until now is an extraordinary atmosphere. There is a sense of brotherhood, and this is evident throughout the nation. Personally, I am very happy about this. Indeed, I am delighted. We see that political actors have turned their backs on verbal attacks and everything is unfolding in a way we have rarely seen before. This gives us the assurance that Benin on every level is changing, evolving, and has reached a new milestone in its history. Whatever the outcome of the vote, we'll all be certain that Benin has reached a milestone in its history, and that is what the people expect from their leaders, to guide the community toward progress in all areas, including the most sensitive and controversial ones. And I'm leaving office with the feeling that I have given my very best, that I have helped the country take a few steps forward in every area.
D'avoir amené le pays à faire quelques pas dans tous les domaines.
Meanwhile, praising the extraordinary atmosphere of this election, Mr. Talon says he has no intention of disappearing from the public life. In his second statement, the outgoing president announced he will likely take up a seat in the country's newly established Senate, a body that will include all former presidents and other senior officials.
J'ai besoin de faire autre chose, de m'amuser.
I need to do other things, have fun, get out and about, but all while remaining a good citizen. And given the role I have held for the past 10 years, it's unrealistic to think I can simply fade into the background to the point of ceasing to exist. I will remain a former president, and so I will continue in that role. And our constitution now stipulates that all former presidents of the National Assembly, and all presidents of the Constitutional Court shall serve on the Council of Elders. I will not shy away from that responsibility. There will be President Soglo, President Boniai, President Talon, President Amoso Bruno, Hungeji, Eji Kolawole, Nago, President Vlavono, President Dosu Roba, President Holo, and President Ponon. You will see all of these individuals are people of character with diverse skills from diverse backgrounds. So for Benin, the Council will remain a chamber of wisdom, counsel, peace and reconciliation. Peace and reconciliation. So for me, it's quite something. It will be a mistake to shy away from it.
Ce serait une faute de se dérober à cela.
That was Benin's outgoing President Patrice Talon speaking on the side on Benin's votes 2026.
Well, it's quite interesting to hear him say that he is not going anywhere. Unlike most presidents, after leaving office, you see them either flying out maybe to Morocco or to Dubai or somewhere to cool off. In your thought, Amadu, I mean, are you surprised that Talon is saying he's not moving an inch from Benin?
So I'm not surprised because he really marked the country during the last 10 years. And this candidate is his candidate, Ouagadani. But we will see in the future because it will depend on how the candidate who win the election will handle with him, because we have seen this in the last few years. Many presidents, after leaving the power, decided to stay in their country, but the man who succeeded to them didn't want that. There is a case in Mauritania. We saw that. Then it will depend the relationship that we will have with his successor. So because he will no more run the country, even if today he created Senate and that he maybe will run, we don't know. But everything will depend on the relationship we will have with the next president of the country.
Interesting. I mean, he said also that he will be among the Council of Elders, including which is made up of past president. Do you think being the predecessor to Wadani or handpicking Wadani, he will still have influence in that Council of Elders?
Of course, he will have money influence. You know, during this last 10 years, Patrice Talon marked the country in terms of stability, in terms of economy. He make many metamorphoses, many changes in the country, and it is not very easy to remove him, to scry him out in the power. So no matter how, I think he will stay, and it is a good thing that he will be able to advise the new president, because the new president will need a piece of advice. Maybe he is young, he was a minister of economy, but he will need the advice of Patrice Talon. But it will depend on how far he will go.
Yeah, so that brings me to the next question. Do you firmly believe that if Wadani wins, he will certainly live up to all advice, or maybe majority of the pieces of advice that will come from Talon? Understanding that he will now be the president and has that authority over the state, including Talon.
So it will be very difficult to anticipate what will come. I myself, I used to say it. I want to be factual as St. Thomas. We will not know. But, politician people are people that we cannot predict what they will do in the future. They are very complex. And, politics is something very complex. Things can be changed by details. But at this moment, I don't think that they need to be separate. And they both need each other. And in order to have a stable country, I think Patrice Talon needs to remain in the country, to give advice to this successor. And everything will depend how the man who will win the election will handle with Patrice Talon. So he can change. We see it, in many times that a president very powerful leave the power and after decided, to have a good relationship, but the new president decided not to, to be in contact with him. So we don't know what will happen in the upcoming days. Let's be patient.
Indeed,
Yeah.
we'll be patient. Well, let's cross over to Benin now. Earlier today, as voting was just getting underway across the country, the head of the African Union Observer Mission, Jean-Marie Ganaja, visited several polling stations and shared his first impressions from the field. He noted a strong presence of multiple international and local observation teams observed polling officials actively preparing and confirmed that voter lists were already being posted at the stations. Let's take a listen.
Bon, nous sommes arrivés effectivement très tard au matin. Nous avons constaté.
Well, we have arrived early this morning. We noted that many observation missions are present here, and we also see that the teams in charge of the polling stations are getting ready. The voter lists are being posted. I think we need to wait and see how voters will turn out and cast their ballots. And this is their day, the day to exercise their rights, to freely choose who will be the president of the Republic.
De se désigner très librement le président de la République.
All right, there you have it, Jean-Marie Nagaja, head of the African Union Observer Mission there in Benin. Well, let's come back here to Dakar as we head to the Beninese embassy in town, where our man Sankule Janko is on standby to bring us the latest from that end. Sankule, can you hear me? And hello. Sankule, can you hear me? Okay, well, yes, we will get back to Sankule once we're able to establish connection with him. Well, Ahmad is still very much here in the studio with us. I mean, prior to this election, there were several reforms carried out by Patrice Talon, and part of it got complained from the opposition that it shrinked, the opposition to what we have now, just one opposition candidate and the ruling party. How do you think this will shape the entire electoral process today?
So to be frank, most of the experts and most of the analysts think that
Please go ahead.
Yeah, it is just a friendly game, this election, because the candidate of Patrice Talon may win this election. So if we see that the Democratic Party, the farmer party of Boni Yayi, there are many members who join him. So we can see that the political landscape today is on their hand, and they are a free highway to do whatever they want to do. So, but the new challenges for the new government is to to make a dialogue between the opposition party and the new regime. It is something very important because, as we can see, as you was telling it late, the political party, meaning the opposition, has been shrunk. The freedom of expression, and there is also a decline in democracy freedom, and also the political competition. Many political parties couldn't participate in this election because they didn't manage to have the sponsorship needed. So I think the new challenges will be very important to make a dialogue between the different members of the political parties in order to have a stable country in the upcoming month.
All right.
All right, Amadou, we'll get back to you, but let's take Sankule now from the Beninese embassy here in Dakar. Sankule, how are you? Are you there?
Yes, Augustine, good afternoon. I'm here.
Okay, give us a feeling about the atmosphere at the Beninese embassy here as the country goes to the polls.
Well, thank you very much. I'm actually currently at Munjai Sise, primary school here at Liberty On. It's just about 50 meters off, adjacent to the Beninese embassy here in Dakar. And the atmosphere here at the moment, I would say, it's very calm and very peaceful. Of course, you could feel that yes, there's an election here, even though you don't see most people. But once you enter the school compound, you see huge placards with the voter list of people who have registered here and who are supposed to vote, and this is a very polling center. So far, it's been very calm. It's been very, very peaceful. That's how I would describe the atmosphere here at this polling center.
Well, what is the turnout like, especially knowing that this is one of the diaspora votes?
The turnout, you say?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, the turnout at the moment, if I have to be honest with you, Imo, it's very, very, very poor. At the moment, you can even barely see, voters coming in. In fact, the voting staff or the electoral staff at the moment, they are just sitting, waiting for people to come. Perhaps, I'm not sure, in the early hours of the morning, maybe the turnout was a bit better, but at the moment it's really, really poor. We've been here for a little while here. I think the number of people we've seen coming in to vote is not more than 10. But I had a conversation with the electoral officer, and his view is that perhaps today is Sunday, some people might have gone to church, and he's hopeful that later on in the day, when people have returned from church, would come and cast their ballot. But so far, the turnout has not been impressive at all.
Indeed, Sankule, thank you. Stay put. We'll be reaching out to you more in this coverage. Well, you had there, Amadou, abysmal turnout from Beninese, not just reflecting, the steady decline in terms of voter turnout, not just here in Dakar, but there in Benin. You think the reforms of some sort or the lack of interest from voters may contribute to this?
Of course. So maybe we will see in the afternoon how will be the turnout. But most of the experts think that the challenge of this election is the turnout, because the last presidential election it was around 50%, and during the election of 2016 between Patrice Talon and Lionel Zenzu, it was more than 6%. But today many people are afraid of the turnout, because during the last parliamentary election the turnout was 37%. So, and in democracy, legitimacy is something very important. So when there are elections, people should participate, and it means that people are no more interested of what happened in the country, and it is very dangerous. So what we see in many countries, when there are elections and people are not participated, sometimes the consequences may be very dangerous. So I cannot go far. Maybe you understand what I mean.
Well, earlier we spoke with other experts. Maybe you can just take us through that.
And that was Dr. Ibrahim Khan. He was also speaking about the creation of the Senate, as many of the reforms carried out under the Talon's administration, sparking intense debate and sharp criticism across the country. Opponents argue they have concentrated power, weakened opposition voices, and titled the democratic playing field. To help us understand the controversy surrounding these reforms and what Talon's continued influence could mean for Benin's future, WADR has been speaking with Dr. Ibrahim Khan, an expert on political affairs in West Africa.
The biggest problem for this presidential election is that the incumbent has chosen who is going to participate and how election will be organized. It's not really the role of an outgoing president to determine who will be replacing him and to make everything possible for the person he will be choosing to be elected. That's no longer an election. It's just a confirmation of a choice of the president. That should no longer be the case in our political system. Our political system should be open system, and our political system should allow the citizen to choose among the many people who feel that they can run a country. That was not the case. One, only two candidates. Two, even the opposition are prevented from participating. Is that a genuine political democratic system? No. The current president has completely closed the political space. And that political space, to be a political system that Beninois need, it needs to be reopened.
Speaking about determining who will lead the countries or who will run these countries, Dr. Khan, do you think voter turnout will be a huge determinant of how credibly this election will be perceived?
It won't be credible. And I think the number of people participating in the election is important. I'm saying this because of the experience of Mali. You know, when after the end of the military regime, people started democratic practices in Mali, what people were experiencing is the low level of participation of the population to election. People were saying, no, because it's a learning process. They would say, but it was continuing until the day the APRM process at the AU level came to the conclusion that the Malian democracy is a fake democracy. And it will be a disaster to see again, after 40 years of practice of democracy, to see military juntas returning back to Benin. It will be really a setback for the whole region, but also for Benin itself as a country.
If the reforms that have been introduced by the Talon administration determines who becomes a parliamentarian in the country, a lawmaker, what is at risk in Benin?
No, Veronique, what is really important in a society, in the way we conduct for reforms. Reforms, as far as democracy is concerned, is always consensual. You need a consensus about the way forward. You need a consensus about a mechanism. You need a consensus about a system. Where that consensus is absent, you need to foresee problems.
So are you questioning the legality of these reforms?
The legitimacy. Yes, legally they can use the parliament, they can do the thing. Sometimes they can even try to organize their own referendum. But the problem is it accepted by the population? This Senate, we all saw how it came. It was even forcing the members of the parliament to accept or to be sanctioned by the president himself. How can you create a Senate in a country without the consent of the majority of the population? Even the former president all decided that they will not be participating in that Senate because they don't believe that Senate is useful for the country. And these are the members of the Senate.
So who, in your opinion, would the Senate benefit?
Of course, Talon. And I will not be surprised to see Talon as a president of the Senate. Because when you look at the role of the Senate in the new political system, is to control the head of state. Because the Senate can oppose certain decisions taken by the President of the Republic. The outgoing president wants to put in place a system where he will avoid what happened to other presidents who choose their own successor. That's what Talon is trying to avoid with the Senate.
What benchmarks should we use to judge the credibility and legitimacy of today's vote?
The process from the preparation to the vote and the decision taken by the courts. That's an important aspect. The second is the number of candidates. And the third is the freedom the candidate had in presenting their ideas, in participating in the electoral process. All these things are important. But for me, the last point is a turnout. Because if more than 50% of people who have been registered to participate in the vote, if they participate, it gives you legitimacy. It says by the people that you are the one that we want to see running the country. We need to look at Benin very, very carefully, because if the new president is not looking at carefully the different aspects of the changes made by Talon during his presidency, he will face a lot of problems.
Finally, any message for the Beninese people?
Well, we all know the Beninese people because they are very calm people. They are not violent people. Participating in this election, even if the election is not the one that they want, it's important because we need to preserve the democratic credentials that Benin has in West Africa, in Africa in general. Two, it's important that everything that the Beninois want to do in the future to really regain that status, to do it peacefully. Violence has never sorted out any problem in Africa. Benin should be an example in organizing elections to show to other people who are still continuing violence that violence has not changed in good any situation in Africa. So I think the peaceful manner they will organize, they will go for the election, they will listen to the result of the election is really very important for all of us, because it will give us hope that even if in the future they will contest the election, it will be also done peacefully.
And that was Dr. Ibrahima Khan, an expert on political affairs in West Africa.
Well, also joining us from Nigeria and Benin, we have two experts also to give us insight more into the election of today. We have Damilare Ebenezer, is a regional political analyst, and Morgan Achogba, a governance expert in Benin. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having us. Good afternoon.
Indeed, Mr. Morgan, welcome, and it's good to hear from you. We do have also Amadou Kamarage in-house here with us, and let me quickly take you on, Ahmad. I mean, while Mr. Khan was speaking, I noticed you deferred a bit from his comment. We talked about the two-party system being more like a referendum. What was your point at that place?
So I think he is right, even if this election maybe seem to be considered as a fake election. Yeah, but also in democracy also, even if there are some reform, we cannot let everybody to participate in election. We need to make some reform.
In other words, it could be justified having just two parties run the election.
Yeah, but you know, in some democracy, like in greatest democracy in USA, we have two candidates most of the time. We have two candidates. In many countries also we can have two candidates, but even if the context is different. But for example, in 2016, there were 33 candidates. I think it's a lot of candidates. Sometimes we need to make reform, and every single party who take part in the election also should be able to have at least, I think, 5%. And also the role of a political party is not to participate in election. The role of a political party is to raise consciousness, is to participate of the democracy, to make people aware. So I think it is the main objective of a political party. But most of the time that we think that political party only should participate in election, but election also should be organized, well organized, and that we will not have a huge quantity of candidates, 33 candidates for election for myself.
Well, if you say 33, Nigeria had 93 at one point, and we had a very long ballot paper. Well, let me go to Nigeria, where Mr. Ebenezer is there. And monitoring from that point, what do you think is at stake in this election and for Benin's democracy? Mr. Ebenezer, this is for you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to all the experts on the panel. I wish I knew their name more so that I could greet them more appropriately. I think I'm gonna step back a little bit, not just to focus on the political party, what went on during the last 10 years in terms of political reform in Benin, which we can conclude has not met its initial objective, because the result is that less Beninois feel inclined to participate in the political process in the country. But what I would like to focus on, and which we all should recognize, is that Benin has sustained its democratic experience since 1990, and that is a plus. We tend to forget that other countries in this same region, or many other countries on this continent, have tried, and the process got hijacked by this or that interest. Benin need to expand. View it this way. Democracy is like a table where you invite people to a menu. And the menu is just the discussions about where the country is headed. Now, the democratic participation is how extended, how wide is the number of participants, how deep is the reach, and the deeper the reach of that participation. What I mean by reach here, I mean, if somebody who grew up in Malanville, which is the border town between Benin and Niger Republic, can take part in the national discussion in Benin Republic, the democratic value is reaching the depth of death in Benin Republic. And so for my side, the focus should not be who are the candidates, has the reform failed and everything. Is that after President Talon, and hopefully after whoever emerges as president today or tomorrow, Benin is still able to call election, invite its citizens, provide an opportunity for them to decide on the orientation of their country. That's the experience we started. It has not been a smooth sail. It's been difficult. But if you put that on the perspective, put into perspective what has been going on, not just in our region, but in the whole world, what we are finding out is that with the advent of social media, where there's a democratization of communication now, and more isolation in society, democracy is difficult to sustain even in countries with centuries of experiences.
Okay.
And this is the challenge. So for us in Africa, before we go into what should have been done right and everything, the Beninese government, the Beninese people should be congratulated for maintaining the decorum, for preserving this process in deciding the future for their country. Thank you.
All right. Let's hear from you, Mr. Asogba. Considering the fact that Benin is in a transitional process right now, how would you describe the governance structure, given the fact that Talon's administration was praised and at the same time criticized when it comes to repression on political participation, the issue of human rights, press freedom? Then now there is a new government expected in terms of the governance structure. How would you describe that so far, from Talon to the new government expected?
Well, it is already very, let's say, constructive to have just as it has been described earlier on, a democratic system moving forward smoothly. And when it comes to criticism, this is actually a very constructive indicator of the vitality of any democratic system. And these various elements are being appreciated differently within the country. The country is moving to a different level when it comes to its democratic maturity. It is clear that whatever has been initiated by President Talon throughout has been highly disruptive of all the political practices that the country has been experiencing so far. So it is very normal that it takes time to be experienced and to be accommodated by the people. So when it comes to the government from President Talon to the next administration, it is clear that we are not yet aware of who is going to be the leader, but it is likely to have the success. You look at the dynamics in campaigning, it is likely to have the Wadai Talata system. And if we do have that system, that will be a kind of continuation of what has been done so far in terms of moving to the next step. It has been described by the candidate Wadai program. It described its program as being the one that will focus on dealing with extreme poverty, because one of the major critics has been that the people have not felt the development, though the infrastructure, the development, the investors, and everything that goes around development has been admitted and, let's say, accepted as fact so far when it comes to development. But the other side of it is the social ability of making sure that everybody takes advantage of this, and this should be the program. And when you look at the program of the other candidate, it is also people-centric. It is focused on developing the human capital. So if these two candidates, whoever is the next president, really, let's say, carry on the program, the agenda, it will be in a benefic advantage for the people. So the administration will have new challenges, and the major one is to make the people feel comfortable with whatever has been going on as development process.
Well, staying with you, Mr. Morgan, my next question will be for the three of you. I mean, you yourself, Mr. Beneza, and Amado here. Now that we are seeing some pre-election indicators, how credible do you expect the outcome of this poll to be? Mr. Morgan, let's start with you.
The credibility will depend definitely on the quality of the process. We have observers that have come to the country, be it European Union, many also a huge system of to observe the way the process is going on. And so far, the process is going on in a very constructive manner, meaning that when it comes to the systematic approval, it is likely to be confirmed and accepted. But when it comes to legitimacy and all that goes around, this is an open door to debate. And things have been already, let's say, point out from the beginning of the whole process, showing how much it would have been more interesting to have several political parties, especially those who claim to be from the opposition, to be part of this democratic gathering and process. But however, the legal framework did not allow some of them who were not able to meet the criteria that have been adopted by the legal framework in this participation. So the credibility and the validity is something that will definitely come out from the different declaration or statement that will be made by the observers and that will be made by the Senate.
All right. Mr. Beneza, your turn.
I think an election is credible when it meets the legal procedure set forward for its organization. It does not go beyond that. Any other thing, in my view, are just opinions of others. There are law organizing elections in Benin Republic. If those laws have been adhered to by all the candidates, and a candidate emerge as victorious at the end of that process, that is as credible as any election could be anywhere in the world, not just in Africa. And so we shouldn't wait for scores from whatever institution with regard to how we conduct our elections here and everything and all that. As far as legitimacy is concerned, again, I think the is the reading of. A lot of people are going to focus on how to read the level of people who refuse to take part in the electoral process. But I want you to flip it this way. Even when people choose not to vote in an election, but they do not disrupt it, what they are voting for is for the country to continue. Okay. Because the possibility of disrupting costing violence, we've seen it on the continent in many other places. It does not happen in Benin. I was a young student when Benin was organizing its first election here. And I left the country a long time ago, but I've had feedback on how elections are conducted and everything and all that. In terms of legitimacy, is not given by elections. I don't believe in the theory that say a candidate is legitimate only when when the turnover is 80 or 90%. Is about the legitimacy for me is about the ability of the leadership in the country to sustain the process itself first.
All right, Mr. Benison.
Because yes,
I will have to go there at this point and take Amado's response.
That's right. That's fine.
All right.
Okay,
that's fine.
Yeah. Mr. Asogba, who is a friend of mine, has well explained in 2 points. The first is about the process. The process is fair, is transparent, and people can go to vote peacefully. So, and there is no pre-electoral tension. We used to see that in some country, even here in Senegal, there were pre-electoral tension. Yeah. Many people were killed. There were many riots. But in this case, in this context, we really didn't see that. And I think the process is fair and transparent. When it comes to legitimacy, so everybody has its own opinion. See, yeah, people can say whatever they want. And I think it is in this point that the member of the government, the Electoral Commission also needed to do a better job in order to entice people to participate in election, because it is something very important. Even if the Democratic Party did not take part in the election, we can see that the son of the former President Boni Yayi to support the candidate of the ruling party. Yeah, of the ruling party.
Let me hold your thought there and cross over to Benin as we get thoughts of voters. What are they saying? Take a listen.
Je suis venu voter, je suis très fier, voilà, et il y a la paix, ça va continuer toujours.
I came to vote, and I'm very proud to do so. There is peace, and we believe it's going to last forever. There's already great security in place. Law enforcement is here. Everything is going really well. It went very smoothly for me this morning. As soon as I arrived in front of the security personnel, they directed me, and I automatically went to vote. Everything was very well organized. I hope that the sons of this country can get things back on track. On this planet, no one knows how to do it. There are always flaws somewhere.
Ça s'est bien passé, tout va bien dans l'ordre, il n'y a pas de problème.
It went well. Everything is fine. Everything is in order with no problems since I'm used to voting. I just came and automatically found my name on the list, and then I went to vote. As you saw, the future we hope for Benin is that the Beninese authorities will preserve peace in the country. That's very important. Above all, peace. As for the future, we would pray for things to move forward. They need to progress even further than what President Talon has done. And we are going to do our part too by inviting our mothers, our parents, and our younger brothers who are old enough to vote, going door to door to tell them to come out in mass to vote. They need to come out and fulfill their civic duty. It's very important.
Civique, c'est très important.
Dieu merci, on a bien voté. On espère qu'on a choisi le meilleur président.
Thank God we were able to vote. We hope we chose the best president. Everything went very smoothly. I was welcomed warmly and treated well. I had no trouble finding the center, my name, and everything else. It went quickly, and we thank God. We hope for a better future, peace above all, with a better president, one who will bring peace to our country, because peace is indeed the solution for this country.
All right, Beninese voters speaking there on the exercising their their rights, their franchise.
Indeed.
Augustine.
These are testimonies that we are getting from the field. But now that we've heard from these voters, let's get back to you, Damilari. How would you describe, voter pattern in terms of decline in voters' interests, considering Benin right now?
Well, it's not just a Beninese problem, it's a global problem, really. And the perspective, because you might have noticed that I focus on expanding the range of analysis beyond just Benin Republic here. Mm-hmm. Look, at the time when the GDP per capita in all major Western democracy was what the GDP per capita is in Benin Republic today, nobody was talking about democracy. It was the will of one man and who decided everything. When the US began the democratic process, it was reserved for only men who could pay tax and people with property. It wasn't extended to women. Oh. So we began here to say both the people at the various level, all you need is to be of a certain age and you are allowed to decide on the future of the whole nation. That is tremendous progress. And for that, we should commend ourselves. We have no lesson to take from anybody on this. Oh. and this is the most important lesson here. We have no lesson to take from anybody on this. Do we have problem? Could it be better? Yes, but we are doing remarkably well. And the country that are struggling need this example of success in this region to inspire, because that is the key message here. The success of election in Benin Republic, the transition of government in Benin Republic, and hopefully the election in Nigeria in the coming year, the success of that too would inspire other people in the region who are trying to put in place a system of participatory government and say, if our brothers could do it this way, we can too. And that's the most important lesson Benin is sending across the region today.
All right, Mr. Morgan, your thoughts on this? How can we increase voter participation going forward?
Well, it is very important to strengthen on what has been said by the previous speaker. It is clear that the process is ongoing and the quality of what is being done is to be encouraged. Now, as far as increasing voters' participation, it's about citizen participation in the democratic process. And the duty here lands in the hands of the political parties. And we still really have to look at the purpose and the quality of our political parties, because this is what actually is the engine of democracy. Because the political parties, they are not just in to fight for leadership. They are also in to find a way to get involved the people in the relevance of their participation in any electoral process, in even, how do we call it? We can call it surveillance, because when there is a mechanism through which the people have the strength to request from the leadership, let's say, accountability, this helps the leadership to really go in the right direction. So we still have this room for improvement that is lacking in most of our political parties, let's say, life. So this architecture is needed. When you look at Benin currently, is about 7 million people that are expected to vote. And it is not obvious that all the 7 million will come out. It has not been obvious in any country. But 7 million over more than 15 million of citizens, it is very relevant when it comes to the level of democracy we are looking for. But the process is ongoing. Political parties have a serious role to play, as well as medias, just as you are doing right now.
Indeed. Okay. All right, well, that's much we can take for both of you there. Thank you so much, Damilari Beniza, for your contribution. And Mr. Morgan Atogba. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And we'll be talking. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. Well, joining us from Benin, we do have Gafudu Sogboho, who will be bringing us update. Good afternoon, Gafudu, and tell us what is happening there.
Hello, good afternoon. Please, I think there's a little bit technical issue.
Okay,
I could not
can
get
you hear
well.
me?
Could you?
Can you hear me now?
Take your question again.
Can you hear me? Just give us an update. So what is happening where you are now, and what has happened in the last 5 hours?
Hello.
Are you getting us?
Hello.
Gafudu. Well.
Okay, I think we're trying to keep that connection going. But we do have Amadou here. Amadou, you heard the last two speakers talked about what should be done to ensure that people are interested in coming out on election days. About 7 million, is expected to vote, but we may see far less than that. Going to the poll in a population of say 15 million. Is something wrong with that?
And it's nearly 8 million because it's 9 people. So I think it will depend. It is not only the job of the political parties. So everybody has his role to play. The media, the political party, the labor association, the trade union, all of them has a key role to play. Because we tend to point out only political party, even if they have a key role to play. But it will also depend on their offer. If their offer is not interesting, people will not go to vote. So I think that we need also to reform the political party, and they need to give people a very interesting speech that will entice people to go to vote. Because when people vote, they go for a programmatic vote because it is interesting. Also, we can see also in Africa what we call affective or denial vote, even if it seems that it doesn't exist in Benin, but it will depend on the offer. The offer should be very interesting. And I myself, if I compare this election to the election of 2016, it looked as if the election between Lionel Zensu and Patrice Talon, there were more passion, there was more involvement of the population.
All right, let's cross over to Benin now. We have been able to connect with Gafudu. Gafudu, tell us what has happened in the past hours and where are you at the moment?
Yeah, I'm in the eastern parts of Cotonou, and that is installing a few polling centers. And I have to tell you that the situation has not really evolved much in terms of turnout. We were thinking that probably in the morning people were at church, and maybe after church they might show up. Well, this could be explained by probably this time there has been more polling stations in each center. But even as that, I'm currently in a center where there are only 2 or 3 stations, but yet we have just very, very few people coming. So we don't have long queues as we used to observe. I wish I could have gotten pictures and videos of long queues in Cotonou, but we haven't really noticed that. Just the center where the president voted this morning, where there was a huge crowd. We guess it's because the president coming to that center. But beside that center, in the other centers, we haven't really observed really a lot of rush or no queues. And people are just coming one by one to cast their votes.
What do you think is responsible for this? Gafudu, what do you think is responsible for this voter apathy? I mean, we've been talking about it all morning, and even here in Dakar, the turnout is abysmal. I mean, what is going on?
Well, the reason could be the fact that first people lost interest for the last 10 years. People lost interest in voting because of all that has been happening. And beside that, the absence of the opposition in the election has played a big role. And also talking with a few people at a voting center, a teacher who really expressed a big disappointment. It's true, a lot of investment has been made in improving infrastructure, but people did not really feel taken care of during the last 10 years. And their hope is to see things improve with the upcoming administration. Of course, the work has been done. I mean, the last 2 or 3 weeks campaign, the focus was on increasing the rates of the turnouts, because obviously we know who's going to win. The goal was to improve the turnouts, but still with that, we haven't seen that much really interest. The situation might be different in other regions, in rural areas, but in the main cities, we haven't seen. And the other thing is that we noticed that most of the ministers have to move to their respective regions and the cities to vote. Even the candidates themselves, they have to go to their own cities. To cast the votes. So this is what is happening right now. But we notice anyway, it's not. We don't have a situation of fear. There's no situation of fear. Okay. But it's just loss of interest in the thing, because everybody said, "Why would I waste my time if we already know the winner?" So,
all right, Gafudu, thank you so much for the update, and we'll be coming to you much later in our coverage of the election. Sure. Thank you, Gafudu.
All right. Thank you so much.
We're rounding off this coverage, but before we go, your last thoughts on this, Amadou. What are you expecting to see? An upset, a victory for the ruling party, or a victory for the opposition party?
So first of all, they need to move the polling center to the church. So
to the church. Well, that wouldn't be a bad idea.
After doing their prayers, they can go to vote. So I think in this election, as I said it in the beginning of this talk, so we know in advance that who is the winner. So we know in advance who is the winner.
You can never tell, Amadou. Things can change at the last minute.
I don't think so. But let's wait until tonight. So, but I think what is important is that the challenges that Benin is to cope up with for the upcoming month. Today, the terrorism is gaining ground from the northern part to the southern part. GNIM is moving forward to the southern part of Benin. And Benin need to be very cautious, because it is one of the biggest challenge of the new president and the new government. It is the terrorism, because the country is surrounded by Burkina Faso, Niger, and Nigeria. And I say, Bismarck, you can make your history, but you cannot make your geography. And no matter what policies they have, Niger, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso are their neighbor. They need to talk. They need to make dialogue in order to tackle this issue. Because when terrorism was beginning in 2012, it was only that Mali was experienced. And today we can see that many countries today are facing this problem.
All right. Well said, Amadou Kamara Gay here, our in-house political analyst. Thank you so much again for finding time to join us on this coverage of the Benin presidential election. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's as much we can take on this second edition of our English edition of our coverage of the 2026 presidential election in Benin. I've been doing this with Augustine Coley, and many thanks to Veroning Jai, our producer for this edition, supported by Abdullah Hassan, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek, Maudo Juf, and the entire team. There were Muwo, everybody on the decks putting out to ensure that we have this production done. The French team will be here in the next couple of minutes to continue with the broadcast, and we'll be back much later in the day, perhaps at the close of voting, so we can give you more and updates on how it went. Thank you again, and see you in 3 hours.
You've just listened to the live coverage of the 2026 presidential election in Benin.
WADR. Vous pouvez nous écouter sur la 94-90 FM à Dakar, via le net sur les www.wadr.org.